My name is Rachel Turner. I'm 31. And the day my father's will was read, I learned that blood doesn't always mean love, it only means you're allowed to sit in the same room while love is decided for you. I want to start at the beginning, because I think you need to understand what 12 years of quiet erasure actually looks like before you understand what came after. My father died on a Saturday morning. In his sleep. Peaceful, the doctor said, like peace was supposed to be a comfort to me. I was at the hospital when it happened. Holding his hand. Until his last breath left him and the room went the particular kind of silent that only exists in hospitals, not empty silence, but a silence that used to have a sound in it. I remember the monitor going flat. I remember a nurse, someone I didn't know, gently touching my shoulder and telling me, in the softest voice, that it was time to let go of his hand. I didn't want to. 12 years, I had held that hand. Through chemotherapy. Through 2 hip surgeries. Through nights he couldn't remember his own address and called me by my mother's name, a woman who had left when I was 6 and never came back. My stepsister, Melissa, wasn't there. She lived 4 hours away, in a city with a skyline and a job title that changed every 18 months. She visited twice a year, like clockwork. Christmas, and Dad's birthday in March. She always arrived with expensive gifts and always left before the dishes were done. But my father talked about her like she hung the moon. Melissa is a businesswoman, he'd say, setting his coffee cup down with a kind of reverence. She has a future. A real future. He never said that about me. Not once, in 31 years. I was a nurse. I worked 12-hour shifts at Memorial General, in the cardiac unit. I gave him his medication every morning before my shift. I drove 2 hours every weekend, round trip, just to check on him. To make sure he hadn't fallen in the bathroom again, the way he had that one October when I found him on the tile floor, disoriented, blood dried along his eyebrow, 3 hours after it happened because he'd been too proud to call anyone. None of that seemed to matter. Not in the way that mattered to him. I believed, for years, that love doesn't need to be spoken out loud. I believed it right up until the funeral, when Melissa stood at the podium and gave a eulogy about a father she had known for maybe 400 combined days across her entire adult life. Everyone cried with her. Everyone told her how beautiful it was. I sat in the second row, and nobody asked me to speak. If you've ever sat in a room and watched someone get credit for the thing you actually did, comment, I understand. I promise you, you're not alone in this. His name was Robert Turner. He built Turner Logistics from a single delivery truck in 1989 into a regional freight company with 40 employees by the time I was born. He was not a warm man. He didn't hug easily. But he showed up. He kept every card I ever made him, going back to elementary school, in a shoebox in his closet. My mother left when I was 6. My father raised me alone for 4 years before he married my stepmother, Diane, who came with a 10-year-old daughter named Melissa. I wanted so badly, at 10 years old, to have a sister. I remember making a little welcome sign for her door, glitter glue still tacky when she walked past it without a glance. Diane left when I was 17. Melissa stayed with my father, technically, though a stayed is generous. She went to college 2 states away and came home twice a year after that. I stayed. I got my nursing degree at the community college 20 minutes from our house because I didn't want to leave him alone. I built an entire life around the radius of his need without ever once deciding to. When he was diagnosed 6 years ago with colon cancer, I was the one who sat with him through every infusion. Melissa sent flowers, always from a florist with a name I didn't recognize, always with a card in handwriting too neat to be personally written. He beat the cancer. 5 years clean. And then his heart simply gave out on a Saturday morning, and the last words my father ever spoke to me were, "Thank you for staying, Rachel." I've turned that sentence over 10,000 times since. Not, "I love you." Not, "You were always my favorite." Thank you for staying, as if staying had been a choice I made once, rather than 100,000 small choices made every single day for 12 years. I didn't understand, in that moment, that it wasn't just gratitude. It was an apology disguised as gratitude. 3 days after the funeral, the family lawyer, Gregory Hastings, called us into his office. Melissa wore black designer heels. I wore the same coat I'd worn to the hospital. Hastings opened the folder and read slowly. The house, the investment accounts, and full ownership of Turner Logistics goes to Melissa and Turner. I sat there, frozen, waiting for my name. It never came. Rachel Elizabeth Turner receives the storage unit on 5th Street and its contents. A storage unit. 12 years of medication schedules. Every missed vacation. Every 3 a.m. phone call. All of it, reduced to a storage unit nobody had opened in over a decade. Melissa didn't even look at me. She glanced at her phone, and something that might have been the beginning of a smile crossed her face before she remembered where she was. If you've ever felt completely invisible in the one place you were supposed to matter most, stay with me. This gets harder before it gets better. I walked out without saying a word to Melissa. I just said, quietly, "Congratulations, Melissa." And I left. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the storage unit key. Cold metal. Meaningless, I told myself, though something in me didn't believe it. I didn't go check it for 2 weeks. My father had never been a careless man. Even in his final years, he was precise. He didn't leave things to chance. So why would he leave me nothing, unless it wasn't nothing at all? On a gray Sunday afternoon, I drove to 5th Street with the key in my coat pocket. The door groaned as it lifted. Dust floated in the light. Boxes labeled in my father's careful handwriting. And in the back corner, half hidden behind old paint cans, a fireproof lockbox. Inside it, a second folder. Labeled Turner Logistics, Confidential. I sat down on the cold concrete floor and started reading. My father's company carried debt. Real debt. Over $1.2 million in unpaid supplier contracts and a defaulted business loan, quietly restructured 6 months before he died, activated the moment the company changed hands. Melissa didn't just inherit a business. She inherited a trap. If you've ever underestimated what silence can hide, stay with me. It gets bigger. I didn't call her. I didn't warn her. I closed the folder, put it back exactly where I found it, and locked the unit. I called Walter, my father's accountant of 20 years. Did my father know about the loan restructuring before he died? Walter went quiet. He signed it himself, Rachel. 3 weeks before he passed. He said he wanted the right person to end up with the truth. I assumed he meant you. That's when I understood. My father hadn't forgotten me in that will. He had protected me from something he never had the courage to say out loud while he was alive. For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel invisible. I felt chosen. There's a memory I keep returning to, one I never told anyone about until now. I was 12. Melissa was 14, still adjusting to a house that wasn't hers yet, though she'd lived in it for 2 years by then. My father had promised to take me to the county fair for my birthday, just the 2 of us, a tradition since I was small, ever since my mother left, and it became his way of marking the day without her. Melissa asked to come along at the last minute, and of course he said yes. I remember standing by the Ferris wheel, watching him buy her a stuffed bear from the ring toss booth after she lost 3 times in a row, watching him laugh in a way I rarely saw him laugh, easy and unguarded. I had won my own prize an hour earlier, a small plastic compass, cheap and forgettable, and he'd barely glanced at it. I don't tell you this because I think my father was cruel. He wasn't. I think, looking back now with the clarity that only comes after loss, that he saw in Melissa something fragile that needed rebuilding, a girl whose own mother had just left her the way mine had left me, And he poured himself into repairing that fracture without ever noticing that he was creating a different one in me. At work, the week after I found the folder, my closest friend at the hospital, a fellow nurse named Priya, asked me how I was holding up. I found something, I told her. The kind of something that could destroy my sister's entire life if I let it. Are you going to tell her? I don't know yet, I finally said. I think I need to sit with it first. Rachel. Priya's voice was gentle but firm. Whatever you decide, you're allowed to decide it slowly. You don't owe anyone speed. I went back to the storage unit one more time before those first 2 weeks were over. I found photographs I didn't remember being taken. A stack of report cards, every single one I'd ever brought home, kept in chronological order with small notes in the margins, good, Rachel, next to a B+ in 10th grade math. And near the bottom of one box, wrapped in a plastic bag to protect it from moisture, I found a letter. Unopened. Addressed to me. Rachel, if you're reading this, it means you found your way back here, which doesn't surprise me. You always did have a way of finding things other people missed. I'm sorry I never said certain things out loud. Some men are built wrong that way. But I want you to know I saw everything you did for me, every single year of it, and none of it went unnoticed, even when it went unspoken. Whatever you decide to do with what's in this unit, I trust you to do the right thing with it. You always have. Dad. If you've ever needed someone to say, out loud, that they noticed everything you sacrificed, even if it came too late, comment below and let me know. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my coat pocket, where it stayed for weeks afterward. I should tell you about the days between his death and the funeral. It was Melissa who chose the funeral home, the flowers, the casket. She did it, she told relatives, because she had more experience with this sort of thing. I let her lead in those visible ways. What she didn't do was handle any of the actual logistics of my father's life. I was the one who called Memorial General to arrange for his final bill. I was the one who canceled his subscriptions. I was the one who sat with his phone, scrolling through years of text messages. The morning of the funeral, I went into my father's closet looking for a tie. I found, tucked behind a row of winter coats, a small wooden box. Inside it was that plastic compass from the county fair. The cheap one. He had kept it for 19 years, alongside a ticket stub from a movie we'd seen together, a pressed flower, a note I'd written him in 3rd grade that said, "You are my favorite person, Dad." I put the compass in my coat pocket that morning. It still sits on a shelf in my new house now, next to the letter, next to a photograph of the two of us at that same county fair. 6 months passed after I found that letter, and in that time, I watched my sister build a life on top of a foundation she didn't know was cracked. Melissa ran the company the way she ran everything, loudly, confidently, without asking questions she should have asked. She hired a new marketing team within the first month. She leased a bigger office downtown, all glass windows and expensive furniture. She posted photos online, captioned, "Turner Logistics, New Era." I stayed quiet. I went to work. I paid my rent from my nursing salary. I never once mentioned the storage unit, the folder, the letter, or the debt sitting underneath everything she now called hers. Some nights I wondered if staying silent made me cruel. I am a nurse. I spent my entire career learning how to ease suffering, not withhold a warning that could prevent it. But then I would take out my father's letter and read it again. "I trust you to do the right thing with it," and I would think about the storage unit, about the eulogy, about 31 years of being handed leftover affection while Melissa got the whole meal. It was Melissa's birthday, in September, and she invited me to dinner. She talked, for most of it, about the company. About a new client. About rebranding entirely, dropping the Turner name for something more modern. "You're quiet tonight," she said at one point. "Everything okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired." If you've ever sat across from someone and watched them build a house on a foundation you knew was compromised, comment, "I watched too." Then, in October, the calls started. Suppliers demanding payment. A bank requesting a meeting. A default notice, mailed to the company address. I found out from Walter, who called me one evening. She came to see me today, he said. She's starting to realize something's wrong with the books. What did you tell her? Nothing you hadn't already found yourself. That's between the two of you. 3 days later, Melissa called me herself. It was a Tuesday night. Rachel, she said. Did you know about this? The loans? The debt? I let the silence sit for a moment before I answered. I found the folder in the storage unit. The one you never asked me about. If you've ever been blamed for staying silent about something you were never invited to speak on, you'll understand this next part. You knew, she said, her voice rising. You knew and you let me sign everything. You didn't need me to sign anything, Melissa. Dad already signed it. 3 weeks before he died. You never asked me a single question about Dad's business. Not once. Not at the funeral. Not at the reading. Not in 6 months. She went quiet. I'm going to lose everything, she said. No, I said. You're going to lose what was never really a gift in the first place. I hung up. In December, almost exactly a year after my father's funeral, Melissa asked to meet me in person. We met at a small coffee shop. I sold the Portugal trip, she said, before I'd even sat down. The company's going to file for restructuring next month. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I meant it. I keep thinking about the day of the will reading, she said. You just said congratulations and left. I used to think that meant you didn't care. Now I think it might have meant something else. Dad left me a letter, I said finally. In the storage unit. He said he trusted me to do the right thing with what I found. Melissa's eyes filled, and for the first time since I'd known her, I watched her cry without an audience. Did he leave anything for me? I don't know. I never looked for one. That folder was in my unit, Melissa. Not yours. I haven't told you yet about the specific moment I decided, fully and finally, that I wasn't going to warn her before the debt caught up to her. It happened at a family gathering in late summer, at my Aunt Susan's house. My cousin Danny came out to the porch. Does it bother you? Watching her build all that with what she got, when you got, what, a storage unit? I think some things take time to understand fully, I said. I think what looks unfair right now might not stay that way. Driving home that night, I finally admitted something. I wasn't staying silent because I was waiting for the right moment to tell her. I was staying silent because some part of me had already decided that Melissa needed to inherit the full weight of what she'd been given, not just the company, but the consequences of never once asking a real question about it. That was the night silence stopped being something that was happening to me and became, instead, something I was choosing. 3 months later, Turner Logistics filed for restructuring. Melissa sold the house to cover part of the debt, the same house I grew up in, the one with the kitchen where he used to make his terrible coffee, the one with the garage where he taught me to change a tire when I was 16. I saw the house listing online, weeks later. New paint. Staged furniture. A stranger's smiling family in the photos. I didn't feel joy looking at it. I felt something closer to peace, the particular, complicated kind that comes after a very long exhale. I still had my storage unit. And inside it, something Melissa never thought to look for, a second document Walter helped me find months later, proving my father had also opened a small trust account in my name years earlier. Untouched. Unknown to anyone but him, Walter, and now, me. It wasn't a fortune. But it was enough for a down payment on a small house of my own. Not inherited. Not given as an afterthought. Chosen, and paid for, with my own 2 hands. If you've ever built something entirely your own after years of being handed only what was left over, I want you to know that house, whatever form it takes for you, is going to feel like the safest place you've ever stood. Melissa reached out once more, about 8 months later. I should have asked you more about Dad. About everything. I think I spent so long trying to be what he wanted that I never noticed what you actually were to him. When I finally replied, I wrote just one line. I hope you find what you're actually looking for, Melissa. It was never in that will. She never wrote back. If this story meant something to you, hit like before you go, it helps more than you know. Here's what I learned. Sometimes the people who overlook you aren't protecting someone else. Sometimes they're protecting you from something you're not ready to carry yet. My father never told me he loved me more than her. But he showed me, in the only language he had left, a locked box, a hidden folder, a letter wrapped in plastic to survive years of dust, that he had seen every single thing I did for him. Inheritance isn't always about what you're given. Sometimes, it's about what you're spared. One last thing. About a year after I moved into my new house, I found a photograph I'd never seen before, my father, much younger, standing in front of a single delivery truck. On the back, started today. Scared out of my mind. Going to build something that lasts. I framed that photograph and put it on the same shelf as the compass and the letter. I don't know what Melissa has on her shelves now. I hope, genuinely, that she finds something worth keeping there too. I just finally stopped being willing to carry her share of the weight along with my own. If you've ever felt forgotten by someone who loved you in their own quiet, imperfect way, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story.